Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hello. We're back today with a Get It Seen, the simplest way to accessible design with Piccia, Neri, and myself, of course. And yeah, today we're talking about color and contrast. Hello,
Good
Piccia.
morning, Michelle. Hello. How are you? Good morning.
I'm good, thank you. Good afternoon to you.
And good afternoon and good evening wherever people are, as you rightly said from the very beginning.
Well,
Yes.
today we're
So
talking about contrast, which is one of my favorite things to talk about on the web because I have eyes and I can see and but I don't see well. So I wear glasses
same
for the
here.
computer. I wear bifocals out in the real world. And as I mentioned, I think if when we were talking about typography a few weeks ago, there were certain page builders when they first came out that actually the default was a gray on white text. And it was a very small font size, but the gray on white was miserable, especially combined with a smaller font for somebody who at that time was in her late 40s, early 50s, and now is in her, I'll say mid 50s, even though I'm closer to the upper end of that. And so contrast is super important for those things. And I remember art classes in elementary school looking at the color wheel and the teacher talking about warring colors. So colors that would like almost move when you look at them, like when you I think of like the Miami Dolphins, like orange on aqua kind of colors that you're it hurts my brain to try to which one is trying to war to be the primary color when you're looking at text on a colored background, for example. And so
So
it's not always just about dark versus light. There are color combinations that simply don't work for especially for text, but in lots of ways too. So all right, you're the expert. So I'm excited. That's my experience. And that teacher, I thank
Michelle,
her every day because it makes
yeah.
sense when I see things and how I process things.
Okay. So I'm so happy that you mentioned this. First of all, I want to say hi to June, Bud, and James, who
Yep.
have said good morning, good afternoon, hello, hey, need more coffee.
Exactly.
Thank you for being here. Bud, I often mention because um, he has vision problems, and I've learned so much from him on how, because there's nothing like learning about the struggles of real people in order to learn how to do it so that everyone can see it. But what you just mentioned, Michelle, I was gonna get to maybe a bit later on, but we're gonna talk about it now. I love that you mentioned that. So the thing about contrast is that you can measure it. There are ways of measuring it. It really isn't, or it shouldn't be that difficult to achieve. And yet, we were mentioning earlier, you and I, as we were chatting before the program, that the WebAIM Million, which is a yearly survey uh, of the 1 million top pages on the internet. And every year, actually, this year is a bit lower, but every year, the highest percentage of errors found on the homepage. So, no, I haven't expressed it correctly. The most common error on the 1 million top web pages. So, not, your local bakery websites,
Right.
the biggest websites. Stripe
The
would be one.
Amazons, the stripes, yeah.
The Amazon, the Stripes, the Targets, whatever. The most common mistake still is low contrast, but there's such a thing as too high contrast as well. And there's also something very important, which is, I think right now the percentage of homepages that have the contrast issue, according to the WebAIM Million, is 79.1% this year. So it's better because it used to be at least, I think, around 84. However,
Okay.
there's also such a thing as too high contrast or a wrong contrast,
Yeah.
because um, as you were saying, what you were talking about, the Warren effect, is that what your
Yeah.
teacher called it?
She
So I
called it
didn't know
warring,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the warring, as in war, two colors that are at
Yes.
war. Well, those are
Yes.
complementary colors. And actually, is such an interesting point to raise, because there's a lot of color theory. Color theory was mostly developed. There's a lot of color theory that really doesn't quite work, or only works on the web, or doesn't take into consideration a lot of factors, among which culture, local culture, local
Sure.
sensitivities. Um, but there are a few things that are facts, kind of almost incontrovertible, I'd say. And the fact that complementary colors, when put together, especially for text, vibrate. I call that a fact. I
That's it. Yep.
vibration. And you can't see them. And yet, if you put them, in fact, we could do that experiment. If we put them on in a contrast tracker, they may actually come uh, through as correct, and they are not. And in fact, you know what? I have got slides to share, don't
Yes,
I?
you're
I was telling you
you
that
do.
for those who are curious, there's a talk on color at me at WordCamp Asia, Bangkok 2023. Asia. Yeah, Asia. I did say Asia already. And I gave that talk a slightly improved version at WordCamp Finland that same year. But for some reason, I don't think there are any talks online of that WordCamp. Sometimes it happens, not all WordCamps get. But anyway, so I will, as usual, have a fight with my windows, and then I will find my windows, and I will bring up. So the thing about the complementary colors is so interesting. So I've found the window, and I'm now going to share it. Share screen. Window. This is the one. So what exactly are complementary colors? This concept of complementary colors is there's such a thing as a color wheel, okay? Because we should start from the beginning, really.
Yes, yes.
The concept of the color wheel, I actually, it's a bit long to explain now where it comes from, but they basically, it's a convention to put all colors on a kind of wheel. It is, you have to imagine 360 degrees, and the one that we're seeing on screen right now is divided. It's a color wheel divided in 12 segments, going from it's a red, sort of deep magenta, then purples and blues, and then green, yellow, orange, back to red.
Yeah.
And these colors sort of came from the rainbow, kind of.
I mean, they're in rainbow order, right? So how they blend into the next color.
They sort of, yeah. I mean, these are very neatly separated segments, but
Yes.
this is not the case. Obviously, it's like a continuous gradient, and here the numbers are from 0 through to 360. But the reason why I've divided it into segments here is to explain the concept of complementary colors, which are colors that sit at opposite sides on the wheel. And here we've got green and deep, a sort of bright green and a deep pink,
like a maroon,
magenta, you could call it. And then another other two sets are blue and orange, and green and red. And green and red obviously is the one with the most dangerous implications, because green and red is the confusing. Green and red is the most common color blindness.
right.
No, it's not a flaw, but so
Phenomenon.
thank you so much. So often in color theory, if you go on the web and look for blogs, they will say, oh, choose a complementary color scheme, because it will be bold, it will get you noticed, it's powerful, dynamic, which is all true. But what they don't tell you is that when you use complementary colors directly on top of one another for color schemes, they just vibrate. Here we have a deep pink square, rectangle, with the words "please don't" in green and in caps on top of it, and to me it vibrates terribly.
Yes.
I have
Same.
a series of eye conditions. One of them is called palinopsia, and which means that when you look, actually I'll talk about this later, but when you look at something that's very bright and then you look elsewhere and you see the
The remnants of
reverse.
it. Yes.
Yeah. And it's reversed usually. I see it for everything. And I found out when I was quite grown up. I thought it was normal. I thought that everybody lived like that. And I was like, no, not quite. I mean, I don't, it's fine. It's not a problem, but I am more sensitive than others to bright colors and so on. Yeah, it's color vibrations. James Lau is saying absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are other situations. This is like a
Yes.
turquoise and an orange, and of course the one that is the most heinous of all is red and green. Just don't do it. Don't put green text on a red background or vice versa.
Even at the holidays, even when you're shouting Christmas from the tops of everything, don't do this.
Please. Exactly. Please do not do do it. And the really interesting thing about this is that in this color talk that I mentioned, we don't have time to go through it, and also it already exists online. But I sort of give a bit of a history of how we get to the color wheel, and the people that studied the scientist that actually sort of, you could say, stumbled upon the rainbow, the fact that a ray of light, when it goes through a prism, it becomes it sort of refracts into a gradient of colors, which is the colors of the rainbow. It was Isaac Newton in the late 17th century, but he was interested in color and I mean, it was an incredibly important discovery, because for the first time it was realized that color actually exists in light. It doesn't exist on things, it just exists in light. It was a huge thing. And also that there's color is in the presence of light, black is the absence of light. It doesn't exist as a color. So it was really quite revolutionary at the time. But then the other scientist quite a scientist, I don't know if you could call him scientist, is the German romantic writer and artist Goethe. My German is really, really bad, so I always, even though I've talked about these things for so long, I still can't pronounce it correctly. But he was way more interested on the observation of color as a phenomenon linked to perception, to how humans perceive color. The illustration, the image that we see on this slide is that of a lady in 19th century clothing.
Elizabethan type gown, yeah. Or
Victorian.
Victorian.
Victorian, yeah, exactly. And she's has a very white complexion. She's on a white background. She has a very white complexion, very black hair, and she's wearing a deep red dress. Now, next to it, we see exactly that phantom image phenomenon that we mentioned earlier, Michelle. And her image is reversed. So her hair is white and her dress is green, and next on the wall next to her, and Goethe saw a person dressed like this, stared at her in the bright sunlight, and then looked elsewhere on the white wall behind her and saw this reversed reflection. Reversed image is called phantom image. And as I was saying, this is something, it happens to me wherever I look at. I mean, I just live with it. I don't think about it. But so he realized that that's a perception. You're seeing something that isn't actually there. It just lives in our brain. So this is called posthumous color, and it usually is. It's a very, very faint version of the complementary color to the color that exists in reality. So the complementary, that woman is wearing a red dress. The complementary color to that is green. So you see a really pale version of that green. And this is something that I read in this fabulous book, that if anyone is interested in color as a cultural phenomenon and also a physical phenomenon, it's called Chromorama by an Italian uh, scholar called Riccardo Falcinelli. And it blows my mind, this book. I absolutely love it because it really talks about how color and the perception of color and the cultural significance of color was also very, very much linked to technical advancements and to technical. So, for instance, I can't remember if you mentioned it before, but in the punk era, the punk aesthetic is all primary yellow and primary magenta, meaning primary in the printing process, because that's how they were doing their, the photocopying aesthetic. Or, for instance, the color mauve was invented in the Victorian age. It's like this mauve is like this pale lilac, maybe you could say. But it didn't really exist before. It was invented then. I mean, there are so many incredibly interesting things to talk about. So basically, what Goethe observed, and it was a revolutionary idea, is that our mind can produce colors. We can interpret reality to see colors that are not actually there, or that are different from what we think we see. And James, you last week you asked whether we were going to mention Joseph Albers, and here he is. So, excuse me, Michelle, I need a sip of water.
Yeah, of course. I did look up that book, Chromorama. I put a link in the comments to where you can find that on Google if you're interested in researching that book further.
Yes, it's really great. I can't recommend it more. It's so, whether you're
URL.
you don't need, it's a very long URL, but anyway, whether you're interested in whether you're a designer or not, it's relevant. It's such an interesting book if you're interested in culture and in color. So this image that we see here is one of the many images based on color created by Joseph, and actually I think it should be pronounced Joseph, because he was a I wouldn't say German, and then I wonder, was he Austrian scholar who moved from definitely he moved from Germany, from the Bauhaus, to the US, and his life's work and his wife's life's work, although she doesn't get mentioned as much, I wonder why, was to study the relativity of color. That's the name of his major work. And basically he found that colors change depending on their background, which are the colors they're associated with. Some recede, some look darker than they are depending on their surroundings. In this specific example, there's a brown square. On the left, it's on the top of a bright orange, and on the right, it's on the top of blue. In the middle, there's a very bright yellow stripe and a sort of dark navy blue stripe. So I see, I don't know about you, Michelle, but I see the brown square on the left, to me, is much darker than the brown square on the right. So the square on the brown square on orange looks dark to me. Brown square on blue looks much lighter to me. What about you?
Yes. Agreed, 100%. And I have a feeling you're going to tell me they're the same brown, aren't they?
Absolutely same brown. And there are other. I've got we can have a look at a page with various images from Albers that I called up later. Because there are so many, and it really is incredible. Like, the same color looks like it's receding or advancing depending on which other colors it's coupled with. So the point being that the theory this theory of color relativity says that we perceive color differently depending on environment, or depending also on other factors, because the cultural factor is very important, not only because colors mean very different things depending on on geography or culture, because I mean we could say that you and I are, Western culture, and so but even so there are huge differences, because for instance, I'll bring up a slide that I have further up. If you're thinking of a political part of a left-wing political party, to me
Mhm.
red is the color of a left wing. Red is the color of a left wing political party, and it was in China, the Communist Party in China, Labour, although it used to be a left wing party, but never mind. Whereas in the US, red is the color of you could
It's
easily
the
say far
Republican right
right.
wing, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's the Republican. So that's already, even though we share a lot in terms of culture, this is a huge. I mean, I can never get over the redness. So I can't bear it. Almost, it's like, no, red is bad. Look at my glasses. You can't hijack that. Anyway, so that's and for instance, if I see purple, I think about death. I don't think about luxury. A lot of people say,
Mhm.
oh, purple, the color of luxury. But if you're Catholic, the church is all uh, what's the word, furnished in red,
Mhm.
purple. So to me, it's the color of death. And the
Mhm.
color of death, on the other hand, is the color of, in China, is the color of weddings. In the Western
Right.
world, it's white. So you
Mhm.
can't really. Uh, but then the thing that's, I was saying, what we just said was that we perceive color differently depending on environment, or other factors. And I want to bring it up because
Mhm.
here we go, popcorn out. Here we're seeing on the screen the image of that blue dress.
That blue
It's
dress.
that
Or
dress,
was it blue?
or that dress. Is it blue? So it's an image that actually. When do you think this image came out and went viral online, Michelle? Do you remember?
I'm gonna guess 2017.
If I'm
When
not
was
wrong,
it?
I think it was I think it was 2011. Can you believe
Wow.
it? I
Yeah.
know. I know. We could do a whole other podcast series on the relativity of time, but there you go.
Yes.
Anyway, so there are a few people watching, and I want to know what color is this dress. Basic stripy dress, and someone put
Mhm.
this uh, dress online, and immediately a sort of war ensued on what color it was. Now, of course, I think that, I've always got the answer because I I take photos. I can tell that this, I used to take photos professionally. I've used Photoshop since it came out. I used to teach it. I kind of think,
Right.
okay, this is a crap lighting, and I can tell that, I can see that the light isn't good, other things are not good, but I know, I think I know what color this dress is in real life, and I think it's blue and black. What about you, Michelle? What do you see?
To me, I see blue and brown.
Blue and brown. Okay, blue and brown I can
Mhm.
take. June is saying it's yellow. James said violet. June said yellow. So, I mean, yellow, that is blows my mind every single time.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that right now we're all in our homes or offices, and we're watching on different monitors,
Screens.
different
Yep.
browsers, because the browser also makes a difference. Chrome is less saturated than Safari. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
However, so we can't control that. But when I show this image in a conference environment, we're all sitting there, we're all got the same environmental conditions, and
Yeah.
yet the answers are mind-blowing. It's like
Yeah.
every single time there's something new, because I hadn't heard yellow before. So
I've
thank you,
heard
June.
white and gold, I've heard.
White and
Some people.
gold. Yeah. So the answer is that in real life, this dress is blue and black. But to me, it doesn't matter. If you say it's yellow to you. Who am I
That's
to
what you
say no,
see.
it's blue? It's like
Yeah.
I see blue, but it doesn't. So the punchline is color is Actually, we'll get to the punchline. But basically, the point is that even when we share the same physical reality, it doesn't mean the same experience. We
Right.
inhabit a subjective reality created by our brain. And you, Michelle, I know a lot and about inclusion as well. And it's a fundamental principle to always think that we don't have the same experience.
Right.
When you think that you got this, that you know someone else's experience, you don't. So this
No.
is about accessibility as well. And I know that it sounds like we're sort of drifting away talking about color and it hasn't to do with accessibility, but it absolutely does.
Has
And
everything to do with accessibility.
yeah, but even if it's a long digression, I hope it's a fun one. I
Yeah.
think we all deserve it. So as I was saying, I always think that I know because I know better, because I know color too well. And here's this trainer, which is less famous than the dress. And I really would love to know what people's opinion are on this trainer. What we're seeing on the dress is on the screen is another bad lighting photo
Right.
of someone's hand. You can barely see the hand holding a trainer,
A
which
shoe. Yeah.
to me, it's a pink and white trainer. What do you think, Michelle?
I see gray and green.
Gray and green. I think we must wait for comments because I really want to know what June, James, Bud, whoever else is there are seeing in
I,
terms of,
I,
of
I
color.
love that around about the dress. James said, "Plot twist: there is no dress." There
Yeah,
is a
I
dress.
love it. That is a brilliant comment.
Yeah, gray and mint. So the green color I see is like a mint green for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can see that. I can see the kind of mint, but then my mind makes the conscious adjustment because I can tell because I know so much. So I think I can tell that it's bed lighting and it's just white under bed lighting. It turns a bit greenish, but definitely to me the trainer is pink. There is no way. I don't adjust for that. I see pink. I definitely see pink.
And I
June
just
says
see
gray
gray.
and
Yeah.
light. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did I do? I thought I'm going to prove to all of you that this trainer is pink. That in the photo, obviously, I don't know in real life, but in the photo, this
Yeah.
trainer is pink. So I went on Photoshop and got the color picker out, and lo and behold, it is grey. It's like it's totally a grey. The color picker really picks and it's not even particularly. It's sort of mid grey, not particularly
Yeah.
light, and it's 999F9F, which is a great, there is no doubt about it. So once again, the punchline is that color is an opinion. It
Right. And
is
I actually found your talk. I'm going to put the link to that. So if you want to
okay.
hear about a half an hour about colors and opinion, you can watch Piccia's talk at
You.
WordCamp Asia in Bangkok.
Yeah, so it's I made it slightly better in Finland, but never mind. It's always you always like I mean only I would know probably. So the way we see colors is based on an unpredictable set of variables, and this is
Absolutely.
why your color interpretation is as valid as mine and vice versa, and that's why it's so important to
Mhm.
make color accessible. Because talking about WordCamp Finland, I was there. Nesta Nesta from
Yeah.
oh god,
I can't think of it. Nesta Angulo.
yeah, the Nesta from come on, you know what I'm talking about,
Patch
the
stack?
the security. Oh, thanks, patch stack, the security plugin.
Yes.
My brain today, every time I say, oh, my brain today, maybe it's my brain all the time. So Nesta is my neighbor. It's so funny. Nesta is my neighbor. We're both at the same conference talking on the same stage. But statistically, it's impossible. But anyway, then we went for a walk in the forest because in Finland, this was Tampere actually. In Finland, wherever you are, you're never very far from a forest. So here we were with this amazingly bright red berries against green leaves. And this was the day after my talk, I think. And I was like, wow, look at those berries. They look so great, so Christmassy. And he was like, yeah, don't know what you're talking about. I was like, what? I said, yeah, I can't. I have, to me, there is no difference between red and green. I was like, I can't believe it. So this is
Okay.
it. This second photo that we see here is the same image with a filter that shows to people that don't have that color vision.
Mhm.
It's not even a deficiency, it's just the way he sees it. He sees it
Right.
like this, he sees it all like a brown. And so
Yeah.
to him, it makes, to Nestor, it makes absolutely no difference. And that's why it's really important, for instance, when you are, with signage of any kind. Here we're
Yeah.
seeing signage in an airport terminal, but it could be on your website, that you don't just use color, but you also use shapes, and please,
Yeah.
letters and symbols, and because otherwise people don't know whether it's terminal 1 or 2 or 3. It makes no difference. In this image now, we've gone, the T1 is very, very similar to T3. If only the color was used, then you wouldn't be able. And you know how, I don't know if I have a photo, but the thing is that, for instance, with traffic lights, it's not just about the color, is it? It's also about the
The
position of the
placement.
color.
Hmm.
So we know, because you know that red is at the top and green is at the
Hmm.
bottom. There's a convention that helps us uh, work through it. So 8% of men and 0.5% of women. And actually, I should look for an updated. This is 2 years later, so maybe there's an updated percentage.
Mm.
So that is really, really, really important. And even without color blindness issues, around 2.2 billion people globally have a vision impairment, which is so greatly affected by color contrast. And we have, if Bud is still watching, if he's not upset because I mentioned him, then he's really, so never. How do we fight that? So if there's one thing that you take away from this conversation, is that you should never rely on hue, because color blindness relates to hue. And
Hmm.
what do I mean by that? Well, we said, back to the wheel that we had before. The wheel is, the colors on the wheel are expressed in degrees from 0 to 360, because in fact, it's not, it's a three-dimensional shape, it's not a flat shape. But then it
Right.
goes into physics, of which then I stop understanding. So so how do you go around that? Uh, use you use other color properties. You use brightness, for instance, to create a different color, or you use saturation. And so you can create color palettes that don't rely on hue at all, So, for
Hmm.
instance, you can use um, color models. Now, I'm not going to get into that because it's too complicated, but
Right.
there's various ways that we can sort of not decompose, deconstruct color online. We can express color. We can.
Right.
Oh God, I did say. I actually, in my defense, I didn't. I told you earlier, I didn't sleep very well last night, so it's particularly, yeah. So
Challenging.
we can express it with using red, green, and blue. The same color can be expressed with a combination of, as a mathematical model that's expressing the quantity of red, green, and blue in it. Or HSL is hue, saturation, lightness. HSB, hue, saturation, brightness, which is slightly different. And then LCH, which is a different model that very few people use, but it's the best one because it's based on perception, is lightness, chroma, and hue. Now, for instance, if we go and have a look at this is a client of mine palette. We have a quite a colorful palette now on the screen. It's pink and red and yellow and blue and mint green and violet. Again, mint green to me, maybe to you that's a completely different. You wouldn't
Correct.
call it mint green, but anyway. So, and we can see on the blue that I've called out the HSB, hue, saturation, and brightness, what's it called, color model. And
Hmm.
the hue, I can change the color and make it look completely different by keeping the hue the same. So in theory, it's the same color. But if I move either way, the saturation or the brightness slider, I can get a much darker blue, which now is accessible. And there's yeah. So James has said something about I so agree. I mean, we could. James says, I don't like it when designers use the alpha setting in the RGB setting to set the color. It's never the true color. Of course, it isn't. It's a transparency setting that gives you a different hex color, and you can't trust it. That is why I hold workshops, not just for, but especially for designers, because there are so many, especially branding designers, that uh, create their palettes because they look great, but they don't think about these things. This specific client, I won't mention who they are, but when the palettes, the branding agency gave me the palettes, I was like, oh my God, all the values are completely different, because they hadn't thought that they were thinking in terms of CMYK, which is the printing color model, and they just translated the colors to RGB without think. So I had different hex colors, different RGBs, different CMYKs, and I had to unify the whole thing. So you need to know, it's important to know these things, because in this color palette, which is, lovely and beautiful, but in fact it has very few color combinations that are accessible. You can only really use the black on the pink, or the black on the yellow. That you can't really do that many more combinations. So that's why it's very important to get a proper color education. And I want to bring out a contrast checker that is very interesting, because let me see if I've got the link. I want actually, I'm going to stop this share, because we've been talking for ages once again, haven't we?
Well, I
Stop
want to
screen.
mention something that is adjacent to color, and that is white space, as
Yes.
it affects accessibility also, because certain neurotypical and neuroatypical people will react to white space differently, right? And so, I think of the way that some sites are laid out, and I've mentioned this in other places before. Amazon is a great example of this. There's not a lot of white space, but they use white space in an organized fashion so that if I go to Amazon, I'm not overwhelmed by the information on the screen. Personally, my brand of neurospiciness, because it's orderly. But there are other places that if I go are just as saturated on the screen with text and images in a more chaotic way that is not acceptable to my brain, and I have to leave that site very quickly because it is just chaos. And so I think we also, when we talk about color, have to at least give a little bit of deference to organized use of the space on the page, what's filled with color, what is filled with text, and how our brains organize what we see as well. So I just wanted to
Can you
mention that.
remember which are those websites that make you run away?
Yeah, there's a local one, and I can't remember what it's called now, but let me find it if I can, and I'll share it.
Oh, please do,
Yeah,
because
see if it's still as terrible as it used to be. Oh yes, it totally is. Hold on, I'll share my screen. Get ready to run for the hills.
it probably will, because it sounds like it's got animation as well, which is my.
No, it doesn't. It's just
Oh my
horrific.
God. Wow, this looks like there's a famous. Wow. This
Yeah.
is basically a very cramped web page with lots of different. And of course, the color, it's got a huge menu on the left,
Yeah.
which doesn't, the color contrast there is, it's a bright green background with very thin white type on it, and I'm sure that that doesn't pass a color contrast check. And then
I'm
there's
sure
that
it
other
wouldn't.
thing that I think we mentioned when we were talking about typography, that the typeface is so small and so thin, but it might be supposedly the right size, but what what automated tools won't tell you is that it's so thin that I can't really see it. So you need, and yes, that's not a
And it's
violation of the
all
guidelines.
caps. And can we
Oh,
mention
and
that
it's all
all of the
caps.
text is all caps as well?
Yeah. We said that,
I
and
mean,
it's all centered as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
The at least
it's
it's the menu is not centered, but the rest of everything is. The logo. There's not even a logo. It's just it's
yeah.
horrific.
What
And
do you buy here?
this is a store, right? So it's
It's
a
all,
craft store.
yeah,
But similarly, if you go to Amazon, so Amazon has a lot on the page too, but they use a lot of white around their images. They use a lot of gray,
yeah,
and it's very organized, right? So I know how to navigate this without feeling like I want to run for the hills. So
yeah. So I'm
I
just
wanted
gonna
to
show
mention
you
that.
quickly because I feel like so the most normal thing that people look at when they look at, I mean, color is it is color contrast. I mean, we were looking. Let's say that this is because we've been talking for ages once again. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna share the Hollister
Mhm.
website because it's a really big brand, as we said. So window here's it's a really big clothing brand. And when I check with a very simple free automated tool that check, it really finds maybe 20, maybe 30% of the issues, it finds 77 contrast errors. And you would say that this red, this white on the red is enough contrast, and yet it isn't. Look, it comes
Mhm.
out as a contrast error. And I tell you what's very interesting is that here, I'm looking at now is at images that have got text on top, and that does not come up as an error, but
But
it
it
is.
should. Yeah.
No, but you should, because this is a WCAG violation. You can't have text on a background when the background is a photo, especially a photo that changes. Because look, the photo is changing with a really weird animation, and I have a vestibular disorder, so I need to move somewhere else because
Yeah.
it
It's awful.
makes me sick. So it has a lot of color violation of color contrast violations, and one of them is also the background that people don't think about, but it is
Mhm.
so often you see text on an image. My point is, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to see the image, or to read the text? Make a decision, because you can't have both. Basically, you can't do
Right.
that. So um yeah, this is, I definitely could carry on. The thing, the one thing that I want to show, and then I know I said it would be the last thing, but the color contrast app, it basically is color with the American spelling, so without the U, contrast dot app, app, and it's an interesting website that I recommend. It's my favorite one of my favorites to check WCAG, to check a contrast ratio when I choose colors. Also, it's got here the example that we have here, that it comes up by default, is a blue with pure white FFF. Please don't ever use pure white. Always use an off white, like for instance FAFAFA, because pure white hurts the eyes, as you were saying, Michelle. There
Mhm.
are colors that hurt the eyes, and pure black and pure white, that there's such a thing as too much contrast. So but the interesting thing about this tool, apart from the fact that I think it's designed in a quite clear way, is that there's a toggle between WCAG, which is the current WCAG 2, which is and AA or AAA, which is the level of comply, like AAA is very strict compliance, and double A is usually what we go for. But as well as WCAG, it uses APCA, which is a model that's based on actual perception, not so much on a mathematical algorithm, which is what WCAG is based on. So, for instance, in WCAG, as you know, is the same. In this case, in the case of this color combination, the results are the same. It's not enough contrast. Blue on off white It's not enough contrast below 24 pixels, but it is for icons and it is above 24 pixels. However, in some cases, and I'm probably going to try and then it's not going to come up, so I won't do that. But there's a color picker. Let's try. I don't know if you can hear my cat moaning. Hopefully not. So in some cases, it's accessible for WCAG, but not accessible for a PCA. Like, for instance, this violet that I've called out just by going randomly through the slider. One problem that it has is that, can I express it in, yeah, if we see the saturation, it's got quite high saturation, 84. So for me, because I told you the condition that I have, which is palinopsia, colors that are very, very highly saturated vibrate. Even if they don't vibrate for you, they vibrate for me. So to me, this color is way too strong. Even if it passes the contrast test with a background, still it's a color that I wouldn't recommend, because I would say, please use 80% saturation. But even this, all of this will be changed when finally all browsers use the browsers already support this new color system, basically, that's called OK LCH, which is based on perception. And it's too long a story to go through, but it's revolutionary and super, super cool. The thing is that there are not enough tools out there that allow us to use it. But I have a whole lesson on it because it's just so cool. Yeah, Dave Den is saying that, yeah, he knows OK LCH. And it is the best way of building color palettes that actually are based on how we how we see color, and not how some mathematical algorithms thinks we see color.
Right. Yep.
Wow, we've got maybe
we need to wrap this up.
We definitely do. Definitely.
So this has been awesome. I think what we do every week is scratch the surface and have you hopefully think harder and longer about how your sites are or are not as accessible as they should be. I like this comment from David. I'll test the colors on my website again. I love hearing that, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And so, we've talked about things. We've talked about typography. We've talked about text. We've talked about HTML and color and contrast. Next week, we're talking about layout, which I got into a little bit with the white space idea today.
You did.
But there's going to be a lot more, how images overlap and how text overlaps on images, and whether text is included in an image, and all of those things. We're going to talk about layout next week too. And so we hope you'll come back and learn a little bit more from us. Any last thoughts today, Piccia?
Just one, which is, I think that the conversation today was once again very much about the fact that really the guidelines and the legal compliance is important, but there is so much more than that to being truly accessible and inclusive. Because that's why we don't even mention them, because we just talk about what makes something truly accessible. So that's my last thought.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody for being here today and learning from us and this series. We appreciate all the comments and the conversation that helps us keep moving forward. So thank you very much. We'll see you all next week when we talk about layout. Bye.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Michelle.